Hi, everyone. I'm David A. Brasher, and I'm your astrology buff of the hour, professional astrologer and student of astrology since 1963. So I've been around this a long, long time. But there's always something else you can learn, and people are surprising. And it's amazing to watch how people manifest their charts. We're going to look at a chart today of a female born January 18th, 1994 at 8:20 a.m. Eastern Standard Time in Clark County, Indiana. Place, date, and time are very important. It shows you the pattern of the planets and asteroids and different mathematical points at that moment of birth. And from that pattern, we can see the energies that exist, and we can see the potential that a person has to manifest that. One of the simplest things we can do is determine the planetary hour that a person was born, because it adds a little bit of tone to the chart. In this case, this person was born during a Mars planetary hour, and that means that she's going to be a little less feminine than most, and she's going to have a little bit more drive and ambition. And there's also going to be a little bit of fire in that personality that wouldn't normally be there, just adding that quality of the hour to it. Another very simple thing you can do when you first look at a chart is look at the pattern and see where the planets are. Divide the chart into quadrants. The horizontal quadrant, of course, is going to represent the horizon axis, and the vertical line in the chart is going to represent the nadir and the midheaven axis. Anything to the left of that is going to be active. Anything to the right of that is going to be passive. So in this particular case, we have pretty much most of the planets on the active side of the chart. This is going to be underscored by that Mars again, and that's going to pick up for this particular individual a lot of drive and a lot of fire. Then we look above and below to determine whether or not a person is going to be subjective or objective. And in this particular case, there are more planets above the horizon than there are below the horizon, thus giving an individual a tremendous amount of objective experience and developing an objective character. The next thing that's really simple about a chart is how do we determine the personality involved in all of this. There are 4 points in the chart that are very important, and you can understand these 4 points and do away with all the rest of the chart and know a lot about this person's personality. The 4 points are the sun, which is the illuminating factor in the chart, the ascendant, which gives a perspective through which the individual views reality, the moon, which shows their emotional response to reality, and the part of fortune, which shows the line of least resistance. It's a mathematical point in space and time based on the triangulation between the sun, the moon, and the ascendant. In this particular case, this female was born with the sun at 28 degrees Capricorn, 14 minutes, and that places it just rising in the 12th house of the chart. Capricorn individuals tend to be ambitious. They tend to be in control or controlling themselves. They tend to be individuals that start from scratch. They watch their peer group very little. They tend to listen to their elders much more, and thus they seem a little bit older than most people of their peer group. They tend to be more ambitious than most people in their peer group, and they tend to gravitate toward power and authority more so than most people in their group. So we're going to see a female now in the sign of Capricorn with the sun in the 12th house. When the sun is placed in the 12th house of the chart, an image emerges in this person's mind, and this is the image that they tend to personify as they get older and older and older. There are a few ways where you can suspect what that image might be. However, it's better to watch the way they look, the way they carry themselves, and see just exactly what they're trying to emulate or who they're trying to emulate. The ascendant in the chart represents, as I said before, the perspective through which this individual sees the reality that is presented to them. And in this case, 0 degrees Aquarius, 25 minutes rising indicates that there is going to be a change in perspective, or a perspective change is going on, and thus there's kind of a duality involved in Capricorn and Aquarius being right here on this cusp. You want to make sure that you've got the time exactly correct when an important thing like this change is occurring, so that you can get the perspective right. When you get the perspective right, it makes a lot of other things in the chart easy. In this case, we're going to talk about a unique point of view. We're going to talk about a point of view that goes beyond the ambitions of Capricorn, that goes into specifics, and also has a much broader concept of reality than most Capricorns do. Most Capricorns are focused on ambition, they're focused on discipline, they're focused on timing, and that may sound a little self-centered. It's not actually. But what we're looking at with an Aquarius rising Capricorn is a person who is well aware of their peer group, well aware of the consciousness level that they're operating out of, and then they fold that Capricorn ambition right in behind that. The next thing we're taking a look at is the emotional response that this Aquarius rising Capricorn has. And in this case, the moon is at 14 degrees Aries, 13 minutes in the second house. Also, the part of fortune, which I said was the fourth point that we take a look at, is in the second house, conjunct that moon. This puts a tremendous amount of emphasis on the lunar function, which kind of brings back a little more femininity to this particular chart, and sort of counteracts that Mars rising, except for the fact that the moon is in Aries, and Mars is the natural ruler of Aries. So once again, we're going to have a little bit more fire here. We're going to have a little bit more impulse here than we normally would have with a female who, most females tend to be laid back, much more laid back. Even the ambitious Capricorns tend to do it in a subtler way. This one has fire. This one has drive. This one has ambition. And this one also has an axe to grind with her mother figure. There always is some sort of contention between the mother and the child when the moon is in Aries, and that's going to color the perspective. Now, the part of fortune being conjunct that moon puts an extra emphasis on the personality, on the emotional side of the personality, and so we're going to have to watch now for how the anger management occurs within this person, how the fear factor within this person is manifest, and also how this person is really focused on going in a new direction. If you've got a fear factor, it's a little difficult to move in a new direction. If you've got a fear factor, you may be intimidated by your climb, this ambitious Capricorn we're speaking of. So we have to observe all these things as astrologers in order to be able to understand how an individual with this type of pattern is going to emerge. Also, when the moon is in the second house, the value system of the mother tends to dominate over the father in the picture. These are just some basic things. This is just the beginning of a reading. As I've told clients in the past, I can do an entire novel just on the natal chart and still not cover everything that's there. People are complex. The human soul is deep and wide, and there are so many variations that one individual cannot encompass it all in one lifetime. So astrology is a lifelong study, and the ability to read for another person and to help another person come to grips with the energy pattern that they have is complex. But I would like to encourage you, if you'd like to get a reading, to give me a call at area code 502-425-3403, and we'll get together and we'll take a look at your natal chart and see what your potential happens to be.